Alright, good afternoon everyone. My name is Tina and I'm going to be doing a poem, The Pauper by Richard ntiru. First I'm going to recite, then I will go to the interpretation. And it goes like this. Pauper, pauper, craning your eyes in all directions and in no direction. What brutal force, malignant element dared to forge your picture's fate? Was it worth the effort and the time? You limply lean on a lifeless tray, nursing the jiggers that river your bottom like a baby newly born to an old woman. What crime, what treason did you commit that you thus condemned? And when you trudge on horny prides, glued like the soles of modern shoes, pads that even jiggers cannot conquer, does he admire the sense of your endurance, or turn his head away from your impudent presence? You sit alone in a hairless goatskin, your ribs and bones reflecting light, squashing lies between your nails and cleaning your nails with dry saliva. And when he looked at the grimy coating cracking off your emaciated skin, at the rust that uproots all your teeth, like a pig on a stony piece of land, does he pat his paunch at the wonderful sight? Pauper, pauper, crouching in beautiful verandas of beautiful cities and beautiful people, tourists and I will take his snapshots, and your MP with a shining head and a triple chin will mourn your fate in a supplementary question at question time. That's the end of the poem. But let's head straight to the interpretation. When they say pauper, what comes to your mind? And when we went through all the poem, you realize that it was talking about a particular time, and then we have so many rhetoric questions. But then, what is the reason for the rhetoric questions? Alright, let's head straight to the title. The title is pauper, and the word pauper in the dictionary meaning or literary meaning is simply a poor person. And then in the first line of our first stanza, it tells us that pauper, pauper, craning your eyes. So it means that the poor person is craning the eyes. And what do they mean by the word craning? In this context, it might mean the person is looking from this side to the other side. And then in the second line, it tells us in all directions, in no directions. You realize that this person is a poor person and he has no hope. And by the time he looks at this direction, looks at the other direction, and there is nobody to help, he actually ends up not looking at any direction. That's why they say looking in all directions into no direction. Perhaps he looks this side, nobody's there to help. He turns his efforts the other side, nobody's ready to help, and then he has nowhere to go to but to remain there in a very desperate state. And then we go to the third line of our poem. It says, what brutal force, malignant element. What brutal force? So when they talk about what brutal force, malignant element, what comes to your mind when someone talks of a brutal force? Perhaps there is something that is definitely not right, and that we're going to find out in the next line. Malignant element. What is that thing that is making you be this poor? Whenever you try doing the thing, you can't get any kind of help. And then we go to our fourth line, and the fourth line is the continuation of a third line. So it says, what brutal force, malignant element dared to forge your piteous fate? To someone here, this is what they call a rhetoric question. And of course, when they talk about rhetoric questions, they actually don't need answers. So what does this one specifically mean? Someone is concerned and he is asking, what is that thing that is behind your poverty? What is the thing that is behind your turmoil, that is behind your suffering as a person? What is that specific, what is that big issue that is making you suffer for this thing? And then he goes ahead and asks, was it worth the effort, the time? And then we see some bit of suspense in this last line, because someone asks, was it worth the effort and the time? So what effort? What time? We don't know. Could it be like this person was once a big person somewhere? Or could it mean he once worked for someone, he once spotted for someone, and then right now he's going through a lot, he's suffering, but there is nobody to help him. And then the person is speaking, the persona is asking, was it worth the effort, the time? But then we've not been told the effort. What effort did he put in, and what time is the persona trying to talk about? All right, that we go to the next stanza, and then the first line of the next stanza says, you limply lean on a lifeless tree. You limply lean on a lifeless tree. When they say limply is like when you're very tired, when you're very hungry, sometimes you might not be lame, but limping is like, there's this limping when you're trying to walk and then you're trying to limp, your legs are all so weak, and then you're moving so in that very weak state, and then they tell you, you limply lean on a lifeless tree. So limply is because this guy, this man, or this person has actually looked in all directions and there's nobody to help, and then they told us that, was it worth the time and the effort? Perhaps there's something that he did, and then right now there's nobody who is remembering him. And then at this state of life or point, they tell us that he limply leans on a lifeless tree. And of course, what does a lifeless tree mean? A lifeless tree here is symbolic of something. Perhaps he has lost the hope. By the time someone goes and leans on a lifeless tree, you know what a lifeless tree can symbolize of? It might not, of course a tree, if it has leaves, it has the life. And then a lifeless tree might mean it doesn't have leaves, it's almost dried up, and then it's referred to as a lifeless tree. Why? There are fewer chances of it surviving, and there is no hope that that tree will either grow back the leaves or it will die off. So what does this thing specifically mean in regard to this person? He just limply leans. He's tired, he's hungry, he's poor, and then he goes and leans on a tree that is lifeless. A lifeless tree is like, he has no hope, he has lost hope. And then nothing jiggers that shiver your bottom. So when he goes and leans on this lifeless tree, he's trying to remove nothing jiggers. Is like, you're trying to look at your legs where the jiggers have tampered with, and then you're trying to remove the jiggers, and then shrivel your bottom. The shriveling is the ones that are on the bottom of your leg, like a baby newly born to an old woman. And then we have a simile here which they say, like a baby newly born to an old woman. How can a baby be born by an old woman? Of course, we realize that the babies which are born by old women, there's a way they look like they're not very sharp, they're always very slow people. So the way he nurses his jiggers, he's doing it in a very childish manner. And then, what crime, what treason did you commit that you are thus condemned? It's a rhetoric, and someone is concerned. What crime has this person done that is suffering, is going through a lot, and nobody is trying to help him? And then we go to the next stanza. And when you trudge on your horny pads, the word trudge there is more of stepping. When he steps on his horny pads, the pads here are symbolic of something, and it's more of the horny pads here are like the bottom of his legs are like a pad which is you know what they call a honey pad. It's so heavy, and then of course trudging on honey pads. Of course, when you're trudging on a pad which is very full, or when you step on a pad which is very full, it's more of yeah, sometimes there's that fear that you get, like what is going to come out of the thing. So the way he moves on that bottom of his legs that has those cuts, those jiggers, and he's really walking on those horns, glued like the soles of modern shoes. Imagine, this is, it's the, oh my god, the legs of this person are compared to actually the soles of modern shoes. It's a simile. So by the time they're relating someone's legs to the modern sole shoes, that means the person has really suffered. Does he admire your sense of endurance or turn his head away from your impudent presence? So they're asking a rhetorical question. But if we try to find out, who is this person that they're talking about? Who is that this person that they're saying that does he admire you? So that means there's something somewhere that this person once did and then he wasn't rewarded. And that we are going to find out how we are going to read through our passage. So it's a rhetoric, and it keeps the suspicions moving on. You sit alone on hairless goatskins. Sitting alone. He has jiggers. He's poor, he's tired, and then he sits alone. He's lifeless, he's hopeless. He has lost it. The lifeless goats, the hairless goatskins here mean a hopelessness, absurdity. He's absurd. There is no hope in him left. Perhaps whatever he did, he doesn't hope for any better reward in future. Your ribs and bones reflecting the light. Your ribs and bones reflecting the light. I want us to imagine this. This is a form of imagery in the poem. Because how can you say your ribs and bones reflecting the light? We imagine that the person is very thin, that even his bones and ribs can be seen if there is light. And what does that bring? It comes out of the suffering, the poverty. You don't have food, you don't have anything to eat, and that is what brings that reflection of the ribs and bones when the light is on. Oh God. And then the beautiful curls reflect on you, squashing lies between your nails and cleaning your nails with dry saliva. What an irony. That beautiful cars reflect on you. Imagine at this point, this is a very poor person, and then there are very rich people driving their cars and looking at this man using the mirror, and they're seeing his ribs, they're seeing him squashing lies in between his nails and cleaning the nails with saliva. What kind of heartlessness do we have? So there's too much heartlessness here. Nobody cares Nobody is bothered. They move on with their cars as their cars and their side mirrors reflect your bones and your nails. What an high public. It's an high public, but I don't think it's just an high public. It's something more than high public. They're actually trying to show us how much the person is suffering, how much the person is so poor that he can't afford food, he has lost weight, he has jiggers and all those kind of things. And then the next stanza, and when he looks at the grimy coating caking of your emaciated skin. But then we ask ourselves, who are they talking about? Who is this person that they're always saying, but when he looks, it's still a suspicion to us. We've still not found out. So, who is this person that they say, and when he looks at the grimy coating of your skin peeling out, how does he feel? So that means there is one specific person that they're talking about who perhaps once this guy helped and he's not paying him back, or he at one point gave him something and then he wasn't given anything in return. We don't know. It's a suspicion, and we're going to get that at the front. At the rest that uproots your teeth like a pig on a stony piece of lawn. It's a simile. Does he pat his punch at the wonderful sight? But who is this person that they are saying, does he punch? Does he look? Who is this person? So they're simply telling us that when this person looks at your emaciated skin, looks at your skin peeling off, how does he feel about you? Does he punch the air when he sees you suffering? It's a question that none of us knows the answer, but perhaps the person they were speaking to knows it. And then we move to the last stanza. Pauper, pauper, crouching in beautiful verandas of beautiful cities and beautiful people. Imagine. What an irony that the world we live in these days, some people are so poor and then the others are so rich. But the rich stay in very beautiful houses, have very beautiful cars, have very beautiful nice things, nice clothes. But then this poor man, this one poor person is moving around those streets, those beautiful states of very beautiful people, and nobody cares to help him. Nobody cares to look at him. Nobody even cares to help him. Nobody even cares to give him a drink. What an irony of the world that we live in. Tourists and I will take you snapshots. Wow. You realize that in our world today, this is what basically happens. When they see a poor person, when the community sees a poor person, instead of helping, he actually becomes a tourist attraction. He becomes like a source of attraction to everyone. And then they tell us, tourists and I will take you snapshots. So the tourists simply mean the people who are moving around. And then the person who is speaking in the poem also says, there's people moving around, and perhaps me will take you snapshots to show the world your skinny body, to show the world your jiggers, to show the world how you're suffering, but nobody cares to help. A new MP with a shining head and triple chin will mourn your fate in supplementary question in question time. Finally. So, these they were talking about the leaders. They were talking about the corruption that we the people vote for these MPs, we the people vote for the leaders, but at the end of the day, they drive their beautiful cars, they build their beautiful houses, and they don't care to help us. The poor people um suffer from the sub-counties, suffer from the districts, and then these MPs will invite the whites. They will ask them to help the poor people, and then they will get the funding. At the end of the day, they will come and take screenshots of the poor people and then show to the sponsors, and they get that money and swindle in their pockets. What an irony, what a world. And then when the poor person dies, the MP will come and mourn the person with his beautiful car and some little amount of money. That is the world that we live in. I want us to relate to our societies. When you go through this poem, I want you to ask your mind at the end of the day, does this happen? And what are the leaders supposed to do? And what are we people supposed to do? What are we voters supposed to get at the end of the day? Do we have to suffer after casting our vote? Do we have to suffer after entrusting the leaders with our votes? After entrusting them to go and lead us? And then at the end of the day, that's how you pay us back. I want us to reflect. I know we've all come from various places, we've all come from various cities, from various villages, and then you see the suffering, you see the turmoil that the people go through, that the voters actually go through. You go to the streets, the children are suffering, but the MPs drive around with beautiful cars in their beautiful cities, having beautiful lives. And then I'll pose a question. If you had chance to become a leader, what would you do? Would you look at the people suffer? Or would you do something to change the community? As I end this, I'm going to show you my poem, and then you will also read through it later. Thank you for listening. And I was reading through this poem. You cannot see, but I'm going to sing it. Thank you for listening. Have a nice time.